Man, welcome in. It's a beautiful Monday here on the Ben Garcia Show, and there's a lot of things to talk about, and it's all Cardinal related. Football season is here. Should the Cardinals make a move for Micah Parsons? Yeah, I'm well aware Monti Ossenfort isn't interested, but should he be? As well as, why is this year going to be different for Kyler Murray? Let's talk about it all next.
The Ben Garcia Show. Yeah. Woo. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need them. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like calluses. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. The Ben Garcia Show.
What is up, guys? Welcome in to yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show on this beautiful Monday, August 4th. Wow, it is just flying by. Football season will be here in about a month. Like, we're talking about, if I'm not mistaken, the first game of the NFL season on September 4th. And the NFL season really just getting kicked off and a lot of things to get into before then. So do me a favor. Hit the like, share, subscribe button, as well as follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. We got a lot of things to talk about in the world of the Arizona Cardinals, so I don't want to leave anything left unscathed. So with that being said, let's start here with my guys' Adventures of Fluffy, Spider, and Chill Peasy in the chat. Appreciate you guys being here as well. However, let's get going here. The Arizona Cardinals are in dire need of a blue chip pass rusher. We can talk about Darius Robinson potentially evolving into that guy, or Josh Sweat coming over from the Eagles and being absolutely nuclear with this Cardinals team. However, what's more likely, really? Is it more likely that Josh Sweat is just really good, like a very solid pass rusher, and Darius Robinson is a rock solid 6.5 sacks a year from the interior pass rusher, maybe 5.5 sacks a year, and just is a very disciplined and high floor pass rusher, but maybe not a high ceiling? So, with that being the case, when you see Micah Parsons and his contract negotiations go haywire, it feels like if you're the Cardinals, you at least have to make the call. And before we get into the argument of, well, this is not a Monti Ossenfort type of thing. Yeah, guys, I'm well aware. I don't mean to sound, condescending, but I also am well aware what this team has been doing over the last couple of seasons with the new regime. I covered the last regime as well. It's night and day difference. It doesn't mean everything Monti Ossenfort does is gospel. Like, it feels like some people take his word for being, especially a team that hasn't made the playoffs yet. In fact, they crumbled down the stretch last year. So although I can like all the things that I'm seeing in the new Cardinals regime, patience, draft picks over old veteran players, continuously keeping the same offense together, I like all that stuff. However, even Bill Belichick made mistakes. In fact, he made a lot of them. Even Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan make mistakes. Micah Parsons is a blue chip pass rusher. He is 26 years old. He's entering the prime of his career. As much as I dislike Steve Keim, do you regret doing the Chandler Jones deal? Second round pick for a guy, if I'm not mistaken, is potentially the all-time sack leader for the Arizona Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken. That might still belong to Calais Campbell. However, what is the argument to not make a deal for Micah? Micah's a top 3 pass rusher in the NFL. And if it costs you 2 first-round picks and Jalen Thompson and or B.J. Ojulari, probably or B.J. Ojulari, you make that deal 100 out of 100 times. The one thing you're missing is that guy. Next year, if I had to tell you, what do you think the Cardinals are drafting outside of quarterback, position player, what would you say? Probably a pass rusher. They don't need a running back. They already drafted one of those. They don't need a tight end, a wide receiver, really any offensive lineman, maybe a right tackle. We talked about that last week. They don't need a corner. They don't need a safety. They're not drafting a linebacker in the first round. We've already been burned on that multiple times. So that just leaves really one position, the pass rushing spot. So what are you going to use those 2 first-round picks for if you think Kyler Murray's the guy? If you're someone who is anti-Kyler Murray, you're not really sure he's ever going to be the guy that figures it out year in and year out, which I totally buy into that. I might not be there, but I buy into that line of thinking. No, you don't make a deal for Micah Parsons because you might need that first-round pick to move up and get a new quarterback. But if you're like myself and you think Kyler can win a Super Bowl, because I look at Brock Purdy and I look at Jalen Hurts, and I don't think either of those guys are significantly better than Kyler. Brock Purdy, no shot in the world. Jalen Hurts, you could argue with me he is. But both teams, you learn, stack the deck around your quarterback, and you might be a team that can make the Super Bowl, go on a run, especially in the NFC. I'm not interested in changing quarterbacks right now because the NFC is so piss poor. So if you believe in Kyler, like myself, and you think he can be a guy to win a Super Bowl, not the guy, just a guy, be a piece of the puzzle, Trent Dilfer style, then you go make a deal for Micah Parsons. You have to. Because the one thing you're missing is that guy. He's 26. You give him a massive deal. It will not conflict with Marvin Harrison Jr.'s potential extension, which we shouldn't even be talking about because the dude needs to get 1,000 yards in a season before we talk about that. He's not going to affect anyone else. Garrett Williams? No. Maybe Garrett, but probably not. Who else? You got young players all over the field. Were you going to extend Kyler Murray again? Even if you do, that'd be further down the line. It's an extension for a reason. It wouldn't conflict with Micah Parsons' deal. And a perfect thing. Listen, I really appreciate the super chats, guys. Never expected, always appreciated. My guy, Chill Peasy in the chat. I wish there was a way to where I could put this on the screen. However, he put in here, what's our window? Could be now. Go get Micah. Yeah, abso-freaking-lutely. If I cursed on this channel, I would say abso-effing-lutely. Because what if I continue to beat the drum about? You don't actually know when the Cardinals' window is to succeed and win a Super Bowl. You like to think you do. I like to think I do. But this gradual growth is not an actual thing. Chill Peasy, my guy Ivan in the chat, makes a really good point. This might be it. You didn't think the Commanders were a conference championship team last year. You didn't think the Lions were a conference championship team the year before. And you certainly don't think the Cardinals are one now. But they absolutely could be, especially with this schedule. You could talk me into the Cardinals winning 12 games this year. Now, a lot of things have to go right. And so that brings me to my last point. And by a lot of things that got to go right, I mean, Marvin Harrison's got to be awesome. Kyler's got to be really good. Offensive line's got to hold up. Defensive line's got to be better than last year. All those things, right? And it's a lot of things. Now, some of the things don't have to happen. You can win 10 games and make the playoffs. But if we're talking about 12 plus, all those things had to come together. And that brings me to my last point. Monti Ossenfort is not a risk taker. And I talked about this in the draft. I've always been someone that can admit when they're wrong. I don't have any issues with it. Just, figure it out next time. I joked, but not so really, but also joked. It would have been insane that I'd trade every pick we had to go get Abdul Carter. And it's no surprise that at this point, I would trade 2 first-round picks to go get Micah Parsons. And the reasoning why I said that with Abdul Carter is the one thing the Cardinals needed was a blue-chip pass rusher. And I think Abdul Carter is going to be effing awesome for the next decade. And yeah, I like what the Cardinals did in this draft. And I was wrong there, right? I'd rather have what the Cardinals have now than one Abdul Carter. And again, it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. However, the point still stands. Monti has not taken a risk in 3 years. And I don't think it's a risk to go after a guy who we know is elite, a top 5 at minimum pass rusher, a top 3 pass rusher in my eyes, and give up 2 first-round picks that you would likely use to go find your own pass rusher. Monty's got to be a guy that takes a risk once in a while. I'm not asking him every year to go Phoenix Suns scorched earth style and go get Jonathan Kuminga, go get Kevin Durant, go get Bradley Beal, bring in Jalen Green, and it's splash move, Mark Williams, splash move after splash move after splash move. That's a bad way to run a team, especially in the NFL. In the NBA, Suns kind of had to do the things they had to do because they were so hamstrung by the second apron and Kevin Durant. However, I'm not asking for that. And I don't think it's a risk-taking proposition to say, go get Micah. And my guy in the chat, Spider, with Parsons market, it might be necessary to give up three ones. 2 firsts and B.J. Ojolari is what I would do. 3 firsts, you're talking about giving up what the Niners gave up for Trey Lance. And that's absolutely asinine. So, again, there's a calculated risk in this. Micah is the correct risk to take. And if you're Monty, at some point, you do have to pull the trigger on something, guys. I'm not asking for every single time. I've been the one that's been patience. I said no to Terry. I said no to players that didn't fit the mold of the Cardinals. I was interested in Jalen Ramsey, but it would have been a 4th-round guy. It would have been a 4th-round pick. You wouldn't have given up anything for him. I would not have extended him. With Micah Parsons, it's not the case. It's a risk. I've continued to say no. With Micah, it's yes. And Monti Ossenfort has not proved that his way is anything more than that, just his way. They haven't made the playoffs yet. They haven't won a playoff game. They haven't made a playoff run. They haven't won their division. Hell, they haven't finished second in their division, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they finished 3rd behind the Seattle Seahawks, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to look at that again. But with that being said, now's the time to make a move. Make a splash. Get out of your comfort zone at least just a little bit. And so if you're Monty, man, I get so sick of him being the conservative, passive GM that says no to everything. Like, guys, I know, the Patriot way. The Patriots still traded for Randy Moss. Like, that was a risk, right? And they were the greatest team of all time, even though they lost the Super Bowl. I mean, this is what good teams do. The Eagles, right? Conservative. A.J. Brown, anyone? And those are wide receivers. Those aren't even pass rushers. What do the Texans do? Well, we're not really sure in C.J. Stroud what we have. Let's go get Danielle Hunter. Good teams take calculated risks. And Micah Parsons, yeah, does it feel like a little bit of an overpay? Okay. I overpay for things I really want all the time. Things I really need. I don't believe, my wife's car, which was somewhat amount of money, like they're all worth that much. You're going to take a loss on some things. But it's to the beneficiary of the team. Okay. There's also another thing I wanted to get to as I write things down, because that's what I do on this show. I did about 50 minutes with my guy Donnie Druin of Cardinals on SI on Saturday. Those Saturday shows are, about 2 a month. I'll bring a guest on and we'll chop up all things, something Arizona sports. But in this instance, it was Arizona Cardinals. And I brought in my guy Donnie Druin. And him and I talked about Kyler Murray. I didn't want to make a ton of the show about Kyler because I've talked ad nauseum about Kyler Murray. But I asked him, and I did ask him to be positive in this. I asked him to sell me in this. I didn't ask him to fanboy it. I asked him to tell me exactly why he thinks it's going to be different this year for Kyler Murray. And I've got to be honest with you. If you're asking the question, why is it going to be different this year with Kyler Murray? Why is he not going to be just a 12-week quarterback? Why is he not going to fall off the cliff? Why is he not going to fall off a cliff after week 12 or whenever their bye week is? I don't have an answer for you. I couldn't tell you it's better accuracy, better deep ball. Oh, he's going to run more. I've heard that before. show me, don't tell me that you're going to run. The only thing that has me believing that this year will be different with Kyler is continuity. And I'm not breaking any news with that. I've always kind of thought that. My guy Donnie Druin from Cardinals on the Side came on the show. It's a really good 50-minute easy listen. You should go do that. The only reason why it could be different this year with Kyler is consistency. Drew Petzing, still the OC. They're returning pretty much every starter outside of Will Hernandez. It's year 2.5 with Drew Petzing's offense. And that's the only reason you should believe. With consistency, an easy schedule, a plethora of weapons around you, a defense that's gotten better, that's the only reason. It's consistency and raising the floor of this Cardinals team. Kyler Murray is not going to turn into a top 4, top 5 quarterback year 8, or I guess I should say year 7 into his NFL tenure. It's just not happening. We have to be honest about the situation. I, for a long time, believe Kyler at his best is a top 6, top 7 quarterback in the NFL. He has not shown me through 7 years that that is absolutely true. So this year, it's about winning a playoff game, getting there and looking good in a playoff game. And then my guy, again, Chill Peasy in the chat with the donation. I appreciate you, man. Faith is a hell of a drug, and K1 we trust. I don't necessarily disagree. It is all just copium and hopium at this point with Kyler. We've seen it through 7 years. He's the same guy. Really good for 10 weeks, especially against subpar competition. And he's in the lower end of tier 2 quarterbacks until he shows us real consistency. Then we can move him up that ladder. But the days of thinking you potentially have the next Mahomes or Allen or Jackson or Burrow, it's just not the case. There's an actual recipe of how to succeed with someone like Kyler Murray and the skill set of Kyler Murray. It's what the Eagles did. Load the deck around you, put a bunch of weapons around him, make sure the defense is able to stop the opposing team from getting 30-plus points a game, and let Kyler rip it. Run the ball, hit the occasional play-action shot downfield. That's what makes sense for Kyler. But it's just consistency. It's just with Drew Petzing, with the weapons he has outside of Will Hernandez, can he be a better version of himself? And I do think there's a world where if Kyler Murray runs more, he throws less boneheaded interceptions. He's going to throw a couple of bad interceptions. But can he throw less boneheaded interceptions? Then Kyler Murray can be a guy who can win you a Super Bowl. Not him being the main focal point, but can he be a guy? However, if you're talking about Kyler just transforming into a top 6 quarterback in the NFL, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. It ain't happening. You're going to have to live with the occasional boneheaded interception, but also the, oh my God, what the hell just happened moments where he's outrunning the entire San Francisco 49ers team at the 40-yard line, or hitting Marvin Harrison Jr. on an outbreaking route with a player draped all over him on 4th and 3 when you have to win the game. There are a lot of attributes about Kyler Murray that I really like. However, I never really bought into the idea that he was too small to play quarterback. But the way he plays quarterback, he's too small. Drew Petzing's got to do a better job rolling him out of the pocket, having more designed runs, throwing the ball downfield, which I believe is his strong suit. You can't keep this guy in the pocket and ask him to throw 27, 28 times, 30 times. He's not going to tell you this, but I do think he has trouble seeing the field. Kyler's not. I've been next to Kyler Murray on multiple occasions. He ain't that much taller than me. And I am not a tall person. What am I, 5'8", 5'9"? Still dunk on you, though. Still moss you, though. Kyler Murray's not much taller than myself at 5'10" and an eighth. I believe is what Kyler Murray was. So if you believe in Kyler, I think it's a little bit of hopium, a little bit of copium, and a lot of consistency. And with the help of Drew Petzing, it's a really, the worst thing that can happen to the Cardinals this year, the absolute worst thing, is Kyler Murray gets injured. And not with like something catastrophic, which you really hope doesn't happen to anyone because it's just awful. I've seen people go through it. It's tough. A torn ACL, a torn Achilles. But what would really be terrible is if Kyler Murray broke his arm or his collarbone, something that we know, well, absolutely he'll come back 100% and will be likely the same quarterback. But you don't get to find out if this year he's the guy that in another year of this offense can be consistent. The worst thing you can happen, or the worst thing you can have, is a year where Kyler Murray is out for 10 games and misses the season halfway through. Because then we don't get to evaluate what Kyler Murray has. I believe the coaching staff is like, well, we got to run it back. He wasn't injured last year. And that can't be the case. The best thing that can happen is Kyler Murray is consistent. Drew Petzing adapts the offense around him a little bit better than last year. And with the weapons he has around him, Marv, Trey McBride, James Conner, Trey Benson, the same O-line outside of Will Hernandez, can he be a better, more consistent version of himself? Because the difference between Kyler and top 10 quarterback talk is, can you just be good after week 12? Can you play in a playoff game? Because what I don't want to do is get stuck in quarterback purgatory, quarterback limbo. And although I do think Kyler's going to be back next year because of the fact that he's got an enormous cap hit over the next couple of seasons, as well as I just don't think there's a lot of better options outside of Kyler. This year, there's kind of an unknown to this season. Like, I could see the Cardinals. Seriously, I know you guys are just going to think I'm being crazy, but I could see the Cardinals making the Super Bowl, making the conference championship game, because the NFC is so bad, the Cardinals' schedule is so easy, and I think the Cardinals' depth and roster is really good. However, on the flip side, I could see them missing the playoffs. I've seen both ends of the coin, and a lot of it comes and goes with Kyler Murray. Some Marv, some defensive line. But is Kyler Murray going to be consistent? If he's consistent, I think this could be a 10-11 win team. If he's not, they're an 8-9 win team. And they're probably not making the playoffs. Next year, if we have another year where the Cardinals miss the playoffs because Kyler wasn't consistent or whatever happens, right? If that's the case, we're not having the same discussion next year. We're talking about, all right, can the Cardinals win 10 games with Kyler and make the playoffs, I guess? Like, can they figure that out? And you're just not sure. But you are sure of the fact that they're just going to be, what the kids would say, a very mid team. And that just can't be the case. It can't be the case in 2025. So it's just copium, it's just hopium, but it's all about consistency, not just for Kyler, but in the offense. Same offensive coordinator, same weapons, same offensive line, same running backs, and then a better defense. And you roll the ball out and see where the chips land. And it might work out really well. But if it doesn't, you're probably stuck in quarterback purgatory. And that's an absolutely terrible place for any team to be. All right, guys. Thanks for continuing making the Ben Garcia Show a part of your day. We are live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m., 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as if you are someone that follows me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show, or you follow me on any of the social media platforms, DM me. I think if you can DM me, because I know Twitter is a little weird, but maybe use Instagram, TikTok, DM me. I will look for them. I think I want to set up a fantasy football league with my subscribers, my listeners, my viewers of the Ben Garcia Show. I think that might be fun. But I can only do the first 11 people because I'll be one of them in there. 12 teams, maybe there's a $5 buy-in or something, but I just want to play with my subscribers and test their ball knowledge a little bit. So if you're interested in that, if I get 11 people that DM me, hey, I want to play in this fantasy football league, save me a spot, we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it if it's 10 people too. It'll be half point PPR and standard, other than that, standard fantasy football, 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, a flex, a tight end, a defense, and a kicker spot. But let me know if you're interested in that. I want to play with my subscribers. You guys will continue to show love to this channel. I want to do the same back. I'm going to just do something more communal and fun. Build that community here. So do me a favor. I'll see you guys on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. So the next show, Wednesday. Then after that, Friday at 7 a.m. to talk all things Arizona sports. And until then, you've been watching The Ben Garcia Show. For myself, everyone in the chat, thanks for making me a part of your day.